Now we'd like to pay tribute to several of our cherished friends who passed away this year. Each person we are remembering made an important contribution to our goal of fighting cardiovascular diseases and stroke. The impact of their work will live on. As their names appear, please pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. The Basic Research Prize recognizes researchers who make significant contributions to the advancement of cardiovascular science and who head outstanding research laboratories. This year's honor goes to Dr. Elizabeth McNally, a cardiologist and researcher who is the Elizabeth J. Ward Professor of Genetic Medicine and Professor and Director of the Division of Cardiology at Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine. Dr. McNally has conducted groundbreaking investigations of genetic mechanisms responsible for such inherited disorders as heart failure, cardiomyopathy, muscular dystrophy, arrhythmias, and aortic aneurysms. Her integration of molecular biology and cellular biology, together with genetically engineered models of disease and human genomics, has led to the discovery of mechanisms of disease and new therapeutic targets. Her laboratory created the first genetically engineered model of cardiomyopathy and muscular dystrophy. She has generated several other animal models with a similar configuration of both heart and muscle disease. Dr. McNally is an extraordinary physician, scientist, and educator. Her promising studies hold great potential for making more inroads into combating cardiovascular diseases. Now let's take a moment to hear from Dr. McNally.
Hello, I'm Beth McNally at Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine, and I'm truly honored to be the 2016 recipient of the Basic Research Prize from the American Heart Association. I've always been interested in how genetic variation causes cardiovascular disease. My very first research project nearly 35 years ago was to study whether genetic rearrangements cause inherited forms of heart disease. I started as an undergraduate student working in the laboratory of Dr. Leslie Leinwan at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. I was especially lucky because I was surrounded by fantastic physician scientists, mainly cardiologists. Peter Buttrick and Glenn Fishman encouraged and helped me pursue cardiology as a clinical discipline. At the Brigham and Women's Hospital, I also had terrific mentors. I especially would like to acknowledge Mark Pfeffer and Cricket Seidman, who helped blend clinical and research training for me. And now we fast forward to where so much is possible. We routinely order genetic testing to find answers, this information that helps us better define risks for our patients. We can sequence entire genomes and build models of these diseases to test new therapies and define new mechanisms. I have had such wonderful trainees over the years. I continue to be very fortunate with a stellar group of young scientists who work with me every day. I'm grateful to the American Heart Association for all they do to advance heart health. So much progress has been made, and there is much more to do.
Please join me in congratulating the recipient of this year's Basic Research Prize, Dr. Beth McNally. Congratulations again, Beth. The Clinical Research Prize recognizes an individual who is making outstanding contributions to the advancement of cardiovascular science and who heads a distinguished clinical research laboratory. The recipient of this year's award is Dr. Joseph Ornato, Professor and Chairman of Emergency Medicine and Professor of Internal Medicine at Virginia Commonwealth University Health System in Richmond. Dr. Ornato is a leader in clinical research initiatives that have been essential in producing today's greatly improved emergency cardiac care. In this dramatically developing field, Dr. Ornato has published more than 350 papers on enhanced emergency cardiac care for conditions such as heart attack and cardiac arrest. His studies have demonstrated the enormous potential of mechanical CPR devices during resuscitation and helped establish the subfield of resuscitation science based on mechanical CPR. Dr. Ornato chaired the steering committee of the NIH-AHA-sponsored clinical trial that resulted in one of the most impactful resuscitation science papers in the last 20 years. This trial demonstrated the life-saving potential of public access defibrillators that has led to the explosive growth of automated external defibrillator programs, resulting in countless lives saved. Now let's take a moment to hear from Dr. Ornato.
I'd like to thank the American Heart Association for this extraordinary honor, which I'm proud to receive on behalf of all my colleagues involved in pre-hospital resuscitation research. Out-of-hospital cardiac arrest is an enormous public health problem. It kills more than 360,000 Americans each year. That's a death toll equal to a pair of jumbo 747s crashing and killing every single person on board every day of the year. When the heart stops, seconds and minutes to effective treatment can literally mean the difference between life or death. Research, citizen CPR training, and improving community systems of care are beginning to make a difference. Just 25 years ago, when my career began, survival was less than 3% in many of our largest cities. Now we can save 12% on average in the United States, and in some cities up to 20%. I've had the privilege to lead the American Heart Association and NIH-funded public access defibrillation trial, which showed that laypersons using AEDs can double cardiac arrest survival. Now, AEDs are commonplace. We have them in public buildings, airports, and on the airlines. For the last 11 years, the Resuscitation Outcomes Consortium conducted clinical trials with up to 23,000 cardiac arrest victims randomized to various treatments in over 350 of our EMS agencies in the US and Canada. Our work has defined optimal CPR techniques, it's clarified the role of antiarrhythmic drugs, as well as circulatory adjuncts during resuscitation. So on behalf of our future patients, I sincerely thank the Heart Association and the National Institutes of Health for their continued support of basic and clinical resuscitation research so we can further improve survival from cardiac arrest. Thank you so much.
Please join me in congratulating the recipient of this year's Clinical Research Prize, Dr. Joseph Ornato. The Population Research Prize recognizes an individual who is making outstanding contributions to the advancement of cardiovascular science and who heads a major population research laboratory. This year's recipient is Dr. Emilia Benjamin, a professor of medicine and epidemiology at Boston University Schools of Medicine and Public Health and senior investigator at the Framingham Heart Study. Dr. Benjamin is a widely cited investigator who has co-authored 450 reports in leading scientific journals covering multiple aspects of cardiovascular epidemiology. Her research findings have led to a fuller understanding of inflammation and vascular function. She is perhaps most noted for her work expanding knowledge of atrial fibrillation, including its epidemiology, risk factors, genetic basis, and prognosis. Among her important findings regarding atrial fibrillation are the discovery of a 25% lifetime risk of AF beyond the age of 40, the description of a widespread heritable component underlying AF, development of a risk prediction score for AF, and demonstration of an association between atrial fibrillation and increased mortality. Dr. Benjamin's investigative career has been remarkably significant and successful. Now let's take a moment to hear from Dr. Benjamin.
The American Heart Association asks us why. In True Confessions, I ask myself, why? As there are dozens of population scientists who could be standing here instead of me. My why is because our work as population scientists is deeply meaningful and joyous. As population scientists, we have the privilege of contributing to the American Heart Association's 2020 impact goal through research, education, and advocacy. Together, we will improve the cardiovascular health of all Americans by 20% while reducing deaths from cardiovascular disease and stroke by 20%. I remain deeply grateful to the American Heart Association, Boston University Medical Center, the Framingham Heart Study participants, my colleagues, mentees, and my family for supporting my work. So why? Life is why, and what a wonderful life. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Let's continue to congratulate the recipient of this year's Population Research Prize, Dr. Emilia Benjamin. The Eugene Braunwald Academic Mentorship Award honors a special individual who, for at least 20 to 25 years, has successfully mentored promising young academics. This year, the award goes to Eric Olson, professor and chairman of the Department of Molecular Biology at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. Dr. Olson has impacted many careers in cardiovascular research, education, and medical practice, while serving as a leader in the developmental biology field and in medicine. He is regarded as one of the most productive investigators studying basic and translational sciences in cardiovascular biology. His findings of mechanisms of gene regulation have profoundly affected our knowledge of muscle development and disease. The scientific impact of his laboratory and its trainees can be measured by their nearly 80,000 citations in the medical literature. Dr. Olson began his role as an academic mentor as an assistant professor at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center in 1984. Over the past 31 years, he has trained 42 PhD students and 85 postdoctoral fellows. He has more than 30 students currently in training, and his former trainees, 56, are professors at major academic institutions in the US, Europe, and Japan. Others are productive scientists or leaders in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries and government agencies, or continuing their training in basic science. Today, Dr. Olson continues his career and academic mentoring at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. He views mentoring as a lifelong commitment. It is my pleasure to present the 2016 Eugene Braunwald Academic Mentorship Award to Dr. Eric Olson.
am deeply honored and thrilled to be recognized by the Eugene Braunwald Academic Mentorship Award. A highlight of my career has been my interactions with my students and postdoctoral fellows, as well as with junior faculty in my department. This award is really a recognition of them and all that they have accomplished. They taught me how to be a mentor. We have a saying in Texas, if you see a turtle sitting on top of a fence post, you can be sure he had a lot of help getting there. Well, I had a lot of help getting here. First and foremost, I want to thank the many students and postdoctoral fellows who have worked tirelessly in my laboratory over the past 30 years. One of the real thrills of doing science is the opportunity to interact with enthusiastic, smart, and dedicated students. And I've had many great ones who came to Texas from all corners of the United States and the world. Their success gives me enormous satisfaction. I also want to thank my scientific partner, Dr. Rhonda Basil-Dubey, who has co-mentored our trainees. I'm also grateful to my wife, Lori, and our 3 children for allowing me to spend so many hours, including my weekends, immersed in the laboratory. And finally, I'd like to thank the American Heart Association leadership for this honor. I am truly grateful, and I will continue to work as hard as I can to live up to the stature of this award. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Olson. The Research Achievement Award recognizes a lifetime of distinguished scientific achievement in cardiovascular research and/or teaching. The award this year goes to Dr. Robert Califf, Commissioner of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. He was the founder and director of the Duke Clinical Research Institute and more recently served as director of the Duke Translational Medicine Institute and as Duke's Vice Chancellor for clinical and translational research. We honor Dr. Califf for his visionary clinical research, leading to procedures that directly improved management of patients with cardiovascular disease. Starting in the mid-'80s, Dr. Califf led a global team of investigators in studying novel therapeutic approaches for patients with heart disease. The success of these clinical trials led Dr. Califf and others to establish another international effort, resulting in studies that were among the largest randomized clinical trials ever conducted. Dr. Califf was among the early pioneers in establishing the Duke database for cardiovascular disease, still the world's largest and longest established observational database of cardiovascular patients. This database allowed Dr. Califf to create models that help clinicians predict the presence and severity of coronary artery disease. Dr. Califf also founded the Duke Clinical Research Institute and served as its director from 1995 to 2006. The Institute has conducted clinical studies at more than 37,000 sites in 65 countries. In 2006, Dr. Califf became the director of the Duke Translational Medicine Institute and guided efforts to accelerate the translation of scientific discovery from the laboratory to patient care, as well as to community and population-based interventions. More recently, he has been principal investigator for a project to reward innovative treatment models and technologies to improve diabetes care in medically underserved areas of the southeastern portion of the United States. It is now my honor to introduce the 2016 recipient of the Research Achievement Award, Dr. Robert M. Califf.
I'm honored to receive the Research Achievement Award from the American Heart Association. The research I've done over the years has definitely been a team sport. So I want to thank 3 groups of people who really helped me in the many trials and tribulations of this work. First, of course, the researchers that I've worked with, including the many trainees and fellows over the years. It's been a tremendous experience to work with them, both at Duke University and the global network of investigators that have done this work. Secondly, my family, especially my wife Lydia, who stood by me for 42 years through many long nights of on-call time in the intensive care unit and travels around the world. And then finally, the patients who have volunteered for the research, including clinical trials and observational studies that have paved the way for other patients to benefit from the knowledge gained about new treatments and also about old treatments and how to use them most effectively in the current environment. So thanks again for this award, and it's great to be here with you.
Thanks again, Dr. Califf. Now it's time to announce the winner of the Joseph A. Vita Award, commemorating Dr. Joe Vita, a highly successful clinical investigator who passed away 2 years ago. He launched the Journal of the American Heart Association and served as deputy editor of the AHA Journal Circulation. This award is given to an investigator whose publications in the last 5 years have had great impact on the field of cardiovascular biology or medicine. This year's award goes to Dr. Christine Seidman, director of the Brigham and Women's Cardiovascular Genetics Center and a professor of genetics and medicine at the Harvard Medical School. Dr. Seidman's laboratory has attained transformative achievements in identifying the molecular basis for inherited forms of heart failure, including hypertrophic and dilated cardiomyopathy. In the past 5 years, Dr. Seidman and her associates have identified Titin as the most common cause of inherited dilated cardiomyopathy and used induced pluripotent stem cells to define the mechanism by which the mutations disrupt sarcomeric function. Her lab has also shown that allele-specific silencing and small molecule inhibitors can suppress hypertrophic cardiomyopathy in mice. Dr. Seidman and her colleagues have published more than 80 scientific papers in these subject areas in the past 5 years. Their previous and ongoing work may lead to personalized treatments for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and inherited forms of dilated cardiomyopathy, two of the most common lethal forms of inherited heart disease. So now let's take a moment to hear from Dr. Seidman.
I'm incredibly honored to receive this year's Joseph A. Vita Award from the American Heart Association. Dr. Vita was a consummate physician-scientist, and he devoted his life to understanding the mechanisms and causes of cardiovascular disease. My efforts in this arena are the work of so many others, trainees, clinicians, and researchers with whom I've been privileged to collaborate for many years. I thank them and the American Heart Association, as well as all of our research participants, for their contributions that have led to this great honor. Thank you.
Please join me in congratulating the recipient of this year's Joseph A. Vita Award, Dr. Christine Seidman. As part of the American Heart Association's recent redesign of our research portfolio, a new AHA Merit Award was created to recognize highly promising investigators who have the potential to dramatically improve a field of science and move it forward using creative new approaches. Each award consists of $1 million distributed over 5 years to an investigator who has demonstrated visionary ideas on major research challenges in cardiovascular disease and stroke. In its inaugural year, we are honored to recognize 2 Merit Award winners, Drs. Kenneth and William Sessa. Ken is the James B. Duke Professor of Cell Biology and a Professor of Biology and Medicine at Duke University School of Medicine. He was granted the Merit Award to study how heart cells regenerate. His goal is to contribute to developing cardiovascular disease therapies that will improve our ability to regenerate new, healthy heart muscle after an injury such as a heart attack. William is the Alfred Gilman Professor of Pharmacology and Professor of Medicine and Vice Chairman of Pharmacology at the Yale University School of Medicine. Dr. Sessa's research seeks to improve understanding of what triggers the beginning stages of coronary artery disease, which remains the major cause of death for those with heart disease. His research aims to explore the underpinnings of what initiates the accumulation of fat in blood vessels. This research could help bring new forms of treatments to market that prevent heart attacks and strokes. Please join me in a round of applause for these two outstanding awardees.